Excited to be back on another podcast episode, and I come bearing good news. I come bearing good news that is applicable across the board, right? And one of the interesting things that we have as a business is that we're at a decent enough customer base size now. So enough individual customers selling their art, selling their photography, that we have a pretty strong data point. We're not Sotheby's level yet, right? But our data point is actually getting really significant in terms of the total volume of art sold. And why do I bring that up? I bring that up because when we see trends, I believe it's directly applicable across the industry. Okay. And we're in this like shaky, weird economic time. There's so much craziness going on in the world, but I am happy to report an encouraging message, okay, that we are seeing some significant sales volume recently. Okay. February was an incredible month. We don't publish our figures, but like our year over year growth was, I mean, there's no other way to say it, staggering. And we shouldn't be seeing that in the economic climate that we are. And what it means is that art and photography sales continue to be consistent. They continue to look like they're uninfected, unimpacted by all this craziness that's going on in the economy. And that is just tremendous good news. Okay. Just tremendous good news, period. But that's not the biggest takeaway that I have. The biggest takeaway that I have, and we're somewhat of a broken record on these topics, but I believe it's very important to be. It's 50 originals at $10,000 a piece. It means that they're acquiring a significantly larger number of new customers. Okay. And you guys have heard us rant quite a bit about the importance of merch and about the importance of having a lineup. Okay. And this is agnostic. It applies to absolutely every single solitary artist and photographer out there that is trying to make a living from their creativity. And I don't think we can bang the drum on it enough. Guys, when you have lower priced items in your lineup, you are going to acquire a significantly higher number of new customers than you would otherwise. The easiest customer to get, Nick, is the one that you already have. It is much easier to get an existing customer to come back and purchase again than it is to get a new one to purchase for the first time. That is just marketing fact, okay? And that's, again, this is one of the things that was just lost and not taught in art school and not taught in any photography school about the basics of business. Like, brands out there spend so much money to try and get their customers to come back and purchase again because they know there is a much higher likelihood. Well, guess what? If you, at the end of this year, okay, you get your lineup and pricing sorted. You had prices from 0 to 100, 100 to 1,000, 1,000 plus. You have non-wall art as a part of the lineup, in which case is merch. And with us, we've integrated with a company called Gooden. And so we give our customers all these different options. And it doesn't matter if you're with us or you're not with us, but the fundamental truth is you have to have non-wall art as a part of your lineup. You have to have items that can represent an impulse purchase. I don't have to measure my wall. I don't have to talk to my significant other. I don't have to marinate on it and pour myself a glass of wine and stare at the blank space and say, Nick, is this piece you created perfect for it, right? I can just make an impulse purchase. And then your art is now in my life and I'm seeing it on a regular basis. This is such a powerful thing. It is like, it's this notion of compounding interest, right? Like if you can just get through the year and instead of selling 7 or 10 pieces, you can sell 50 or 60, that's 50 or 60 customers you've acquired that have represented via a transaction that they are interested in what you are putting out. And so the mass just keep compounding and compounding and compounding. Every marketing initiative you run, every sales campaign that you initiate is now going to a larger portion of people that have already purchased your work. And I get these kids in my webinar, Nick, and there's this gal that came on yesterday or Monday, and she's 25. She's just getting started out, and she's in there with these people that are some people that are in their 60s and 70s and 80s, and the 70-year-olds are like, after the advice was given, after I kind of just laid out the same argument, they're like, oh my gosh, all the old folks want to help the young gals, right? Like the young gals, young guys, like, it's a young them that they see, right? Like if I can just instill these values now, if I would have been acquiring, 50, 100, 150, 500 customers a year, every year since I was your age, do you know what my business would look like now? And that's the takeaway. That's the takeaway. And we're seeing it. And so I really feel like our teaching on the lineup and the fundamentals and this addition of additional products in which an artist or a photographer can acquire customers is fundamentally moving and impacting the needle. And knowing what we know, it is going to pay dividends for years and decades to come.
Yeah, and you just gave a great explanation and a lot of details. And I can kind of get a little economics professorial here, right? There are two, you've got the art market, which is like its own, multi-billion-dollar market, right?
Yeah.
Just think about that as like one silo. So if you're an artist and all you have is wall art, you are participating in that market. Then there's the gifting market, okay, which is a enormous market. Yeah. It is so big. It's hard to even understand, right? Because
billions, you're talking about billions and billions. Yes.
Hundreds of billions probably, right? And so when you are actually offering non-wall art, okay, so from coasters to any type of merch items, coffee table books, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what it is, right? Like you can, if you're a high-end artist, you can trust me. We have high-end artists who find their way of selling really expensive coffee table books. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That are signed and sometimes numbered. Like you can do it for any type of merch item. You can make a merch item a limited edition if you want to, But the point of it is that these are two separate markets that if you are playing in both, you just dramatically increased the size of your opportunity. Okay. So if you take everything that you just said, okay, and you add that to it, you start understanding what's going on here. And there's a reason for it. There's a reason the gifting market is so important, because when you're talking about whether it's, and these are very big art selling holidays, as you know, we talk about these all the time. We're going to talk about them more. Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Christmas, Easter. All the different holidays around the year, they're basically all gifting times, where somebody's buying a gift for somebody else. Okay.
Or themselves.
Yeah. Exactly. And so the gifting thing it's not just about gifting. It's about impulse buys, right? Empowering your followers, your leads, the people who are taking a look at you. Maybe they haven't bought anything yet. Or maybe they have bought something. Maybe they bought a piece of art. They can buy something else, or they can buy something on the spot where they don't need a significant other to approve the purchase. I don't need to, ask my wife whether I can put something on this wall behind me and whether it meshes with all the interior design. None of that. Okay. I can just buy it right now. Right. I can buy your coasters. I can buy your mug. I can buy your book. I can buy your calendar. I could buy your tote bag. I could buy your pillow, whatever it is, whatever you want to offer. Opening that up is such a big deal, and depending on what type of an artist you are, how expensive your pieces are. If they're super expensive all the way down, there's a way to play the whole thing. There's a way to play it in a very, very expensive way. And we always talk about one of the artists that we love, one of the most successful artists ever, let's just say, Wyland, right? Who's still alive and has galleries all over the place. It's like you walk into these galleries, you think they don't have items that fit this bill? Of course they do. Oh, they got stuff that you can walk in and out of, and you don't need to make a big decision on it. You know what I mean? Yeah. This is, and he's in the most expensive zip codes in the world. Some of them, some of the most expensive zip codes in the entire world. Okay. Laguna Beach, Hawaii, like we could go down the list. We don't need to.
US.
There's no argument. There's no argument against it. It's and the data shows it, right? Our data shows it. We've got over 14,000, artists and photographers, creatives at art storefronts right now. And so, like you said, we are sort of an index. You know how like there's like index funds on like the S&P 500? Yeah. We sort of serve as an index in the industry now for, as a proxy for what's happening with art sales. So we get to see these things, and these trends are very, very important. And I think it's just a super exciting time. To comment on another thing that you said, it's like we see inflation going on. We saw it last year, and in our heads, you're like, the economy is kind of weird. Well, for some people, it's not. For some people, it is, right? Like we've seen some grocery prices and things like that going up and all that. But at the same time, on the other hand, it's like you got stock market at all-time highs. You've got, at least at this moment right now, things like crypto is like exploding. Gold is exploding, right? So like there's and this is with high interest rates. So, things are being redefined right now. On top of that, the government is spending 120% on GDP every year. Like government spending is so high that like it's spending on its own without any of us, right? Like 120% of its own GDP. That's crazy. That's just absolutely crazy. So there's still so much going on in the economy. And so then when we're seeing things like this, where art sales are, rapidly still growing and it's all still happening, it's kind of fitting into that bucket of where it's like people are still buying things. I'll tell you another thing too. It's like you got spring break coming up, and it's like you look at the tickets for flights, like to go to all the people typically are going to like places like Mexico or Florida or whatever you might be trying. Dude, these flights are completely booked.
Out of control.
They're through the roof, and the hotels are completely booked. It's almost like it was last year or the year before. So let me just tell you, it's, there's still money out there, and maybe it's money with, upper middle class and above. Maybe that's the case, right? Probably is. But let me just tell you, they're spending. They are spending, and it's on, which makes it a really, really exciting time right now because we've got the spring art selling season, which is like a huge art selling season about to, begin, starting with Easter in April. Amazing time right now. The spring selling season going into summer, going into Q4, could not be more excited.
Yeah, one of the interesting things, and we'll pivot to the holidays coming up, but that you said is like, we love talking about Wineland because we just love his message and think he's great at what he does. And look, you got to study the masters, right? The folks, and this is true of Wineland, obviously, this is true of Jonah, right? Who has his own retail art gallery. Like this notion of getting your own retail art gallery forces on artists and photographers a level of thinking that makes them think like a retail business. And those lessons are so insanely applicable, to how you should run the online business. Yes. Everyone tries to like twist and tweak the online business like it's some special different thing. It's not. It's just retail businesses. And,
it's a retail business gone digital,
Exactly. And we talk about the gift related items, right, that appear in every single solitary art gallery, because you can't just have art in there, because you get all kinds of people stopping by that want to get things. Or if you want the gift shops and museums, right? And, like in Jonah's case, like, he's got postcards in there now. He's got his photo books in there now. And it forces you to think in such a different way, right? And understand the flex, of one leading to the sale of the other and the other leading to the sale of the other. And what do I mean by that? You buy a coffee table book and it sits on your coffee table and you're just constantly looking at this art and your guests are looking at this art and it dovetails with your decor. And then all of a sudden you're like, I don't have one on the wall. So those smaller items drive the larger picture sales, but the same is also true. Why do the Ferrari guys always wear the Ferrari hats, Nick? Do they have to tell us twice that they own a Ferrari? The point is that like you buy these high-end goods too, the wall art, the high-end wall art, and all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, I want some accessories, that dovetail with that art. And it could be everything from like the power flex side of it with the Ferrari hat to like, I just like it. Like now I've got the coffee table book and by one of those images is in the hallway, right? Like that's phenomenal, right? It's just phenomenal marketing. And I should say also, just to finish on the retail side of things, like, our job is online art sellers, online creatives trying to sell our wares, is to copy what's worked in retail forever, right? And so, yes, I stress that on these gift-related items, these merchandise-related items, the sub-$100 price point, which is really what they are. Like people get hung up, it's just a sub-$100 price point, a low-ticket commitment item, right? Well, we've incorporated over the last couple of years pre-purchase and post-purchase activities into our software, which is very, very important, which means when somebody comes to buy something, it's like, hey, do you also want to add this? And it's a significantly less priced item, right? So if somebody buys something in original for $1,200, before they check out, they're like, do you want to add this to your cart for $150, right? And
that's called an order bump, right?
Yeah, the nomenclature,
I like saying it because it's built into our e-commerce platform, right?
One click upsells and order
bumps. One click upsell. Yeah, there you go.
Yes. So it's something that happens before and it's something that happens after. And, why I bring it up in a retail context, when we're in line at the supermarket, when we're in line at the hardware store and you're snaking through the lines, what are they showing us? All those cheaper gift-related items that are likely a lower percentage, a lower price point percentage. Do you notice how there's no expensive items?
Right.
Okay. It's all the
everything you can
stuff.
afford no matter what. It's just like,
yeah. And it's almost always less. It's almost always less than what you purchased originally. Right. And so here's this lower ticket item. And then, in my hardware store, I don't know if you're doing this, after the transaction happens, or it's right at the point of transaction, do you want to round up to donate to such and such, right? So you get an even transaction. So they're hitting you twice. They're hitting you once before you check out, and then they're hitting you when you check out. And it's like, these are fundamental tenets that's worked in retail forever and ever and ever, In the stores that have it make significantly more revenue as a result of it. They increase their AOV, it goes through the roof. And so we're seeing that And that's leading to the transaction volume, because each transaction is multi-item. That's a better transaction than just a single item, right? So it's just fascinating to see how it evolves. I don't think these things are commonly explained enough. So I like us harping on them, because I want you thinking about how you can incorporate that into your business. I'm like, look, we have a diverse audience that sells a bunch of different things. Don't get hung up on the what it is. Do you? We have so many options of things you can do. It's crazy. If you've got something else going on, then use those options. It doesn't matter. You have to have it, because you're going to get more new customers. You're just copying what works in retail. Go into an art gallery and see what they have, whatever it takes. But it fundamentally is changing the business. So I'm excited about it. But that lets us pivot into the holidays. You and I have kids. We know it's spring break. We know what's coming, and it's coming thick and fast. How many do we have coming up?
We've got quite a few. Several really big ones, a couple of smaller ones, but we've got quite a few. We got Easter coming up. Big art selling time.
Huge one.
Huge one. And then we've got Mother's Day, and then we've got Father's Day, right? So like those are kind of the bellwethers of the spring season. And then there's a couple of other, little celebration days that you always want to take advantage of and do your marketing around as well. So the spring season is just, we're here, right? It's like, we finished the fourth quarter. We got through like January, February. You got Valentine's Day in there, really good one. Now we've got spring. So it's time. This is a phenomenal time of the year.
Yep. And again, like, this is another one of those things that's really hard as a creative to rewire your brain to think that these holidays that come up, you think like these things don't apply to me.
What everybody wants to think. That's what everybody.
Yeah.
I don't celebrate Easter. No.
I'm Jewish. Like I celebrate Passover. Like you have to like get unemotional about it and realize that all of them represent a tailwind behind your normal marketing efforts. What happens is that every one of these holidays that comes up, we as consumers have been trained, especially in North America, to spend money when these situations come up. That represents a tailwind, behind your marketing efforts, quite frankly, for whatever you sell. It's just a free power up. If your plane was going 500 miles an hour, you're now going 575 miles an hour. And it's so easy to gloss over these things. And it's so easy to think like, no one's going to give something to mom. No one's going to give one of my gifts as a religious gift. No one's going to give something to dad, or have it be spring, whatever the holiday is related. It's like, guys, it is just a time when you have tailwinds. And so if you're going to do something, whatever thing you're going to do, if you do it, I don't even care if you call it for Mother's Day or for Easter or for Father's Day, or if you want to call it a spring sale. When you do it, when these big holidays are coming, up, you're going to have a tailwind. You are going to see increased results, more sales, more attention, higher AOV, average order value on the orders that you're getting. And these are just fundamental truths. And again, all we have to do is follow the retailers. That's
exactly right. And that's the biggest point. Like anybody who if you've been thinking, oh, these holidays, they don't apply to me. Like they don't apply to my art or my product. I'm telling you, if you have thought that, you need more marketing help, more promotion help than anyone. Than anyone. All right. Because this psychology and what Patrick just said, please rewind that back if you didn't hear it, because this is so important. The entire country, let alone the entire world, but let's just say the entire country is literally programming the subconscious of every consumer when they walk into every retail shop, particularly the big box retailers like Target, you name it, like Walmart, your local supermarket, whatever it is, they all have an Easter section. The Easter section is already up, and Easter is still a ways away, right? We talked about this in previous episodes. We're gonna keep pounding it in, but like the day after New Year's, Valentine's Day stuff was in all of the shops. You and I are like, we're not shocked, but it's like, wow, January 2nd. Like overnight, they just did all of that work to get the whole Valentine's Day section up. Yes, they did.
Every end cap all throughout the store. That's right. Like can't miss
it. They did. Right. So all of these shops are doing this. All the marketing is happening, and you just get to water ski behind it. Right. If you're smart, you get to water ski behind all that psychology. If you're instantly fighting it, it's like, what are you doing? You're like the one supermarket that's like, nope, I'm not doing that. It's like, this is what every big retailer does. And it's programming the consumer to spend money and to program them to think about, here's where I'm going to spend my money when I think about buying something for this holiday, right? You just got to water ski behind that and get creative with it. Obviously this is something that we spend a lot of time on, like helping our customers with, but generally speaking, it's not rocket science. You got to understand it. And it goes on all year long. Okay. So coming up with Easter, Mother's Day, right? There's so many things that you can come up with, even if you don't have a gift for mom, right? Celebrating all mothers, I'm giving a sale. Celebrating, a lot of people like, Easter's important to a lot of people. You could be a different religion, but you can still say that, right? And guess what? You could do the same thing for the Jewish religion, for, an Islamic holiday. You could do all of it. You could
need some custom artwork for mom, need some custom artwork for dad. I'm opening myself up. Like there's
exactly.
You just have to get creative with how you approach it. That's it. Right.
Yep. And you water ski behind it. Like you said, you get the tailwind behind you. The wind is at your back with your marketing, rather than marketing what? Marketing what? When's the last time you saw an artist have like a cohesive marketing plan for like 365 days out of the year that made any sense, right? It's usually just lobbing out social media posts,
last minute, oh my gosh, this is coming up. And that's the other big kicker. It's like, I like the tailwind of like water skiing. Part of me is like, should it just be electric bike? Have you ridden an electric bike? You ever ridden a normal bike versus an electric bike? That's what these holidays are. It's like you've got pedal assist, that's just driving you along. That's probably a better analogy. But the danger, I know, like, because we talked about this in the last two podcast episodes. The reason that we do this, you guys, is because these huge retailers, your Walmart, your aforementioned Target, your Hobby Lobby, your Five Below, any of those, they are planning, your Home Depot, even if you like, or even the supermarket, when it gets right, they are planning for this a year ahead of time, because they've got to warehouse things and inventory things. And what we continually see and have continually seen is, if you decide that you want to take advantage of these things a week, a day, 3 days before, you've missed it. I'm never going to say don't run a promotion. Run a promotion even if it's day of, right? Because I want you guys doing your marketing consistently. But you have to get ahead of these things. And when you get ahead of these things and you start planting the seeds that, like, oh, this thing's coming, okay? Oh, I've got things that are great for it. Oh, you were thinking about getting yourself a gift. Oh, here's a gift, aforementioned gift item. Like, you have to get ahead of it. And if you're not ahead of it, you're just missing it. And to go all the way back to what I said, like, the more of these things you miss, the fewer new customers that you are going to acquire, the fewer of those new customers are going to come back and buy again, and the fewer collectors you're going to have. And it's just mass.
Yeah.
It's just mass.
And the more you're wondering why your art business isn't growing and you're not succeeding more, year after year, right? Like, I think another good way of talking about it is like, you just talked about how these retailers are planning for a year, right? To like for the Valentine's Day. It's like, if you understand the level of seriousness that these corporations have for these holidays, you might appreciate it more, and you might wake up and do the same thing, right? And what I mean by that is, there are pallets of inventory that were planned that are sitting there, like probably a week before New Year's, if not sooner, in the warehouse, waiting to just get unpacked on, in the case of Valentine's Day, January 2nd, where like people are, there's a night shift in the middle of the night. People are literally going around decorating the whole store, removing the whole the New Year's section, putting in the Valentine's Day section. There is months and months and months of planning and full-time jobs of responsibilities of people that are literally dedicated to making sure that they don't miss a day or an hour, And it's like, if you understand the level of seriousness of those retailers and why they're doing it, then you might actually understand, like, wait a minute, I am really missing out here on my marketing. I'm barely even doing anything. And I think another thing too, Pat, that's important to talk about is like, when we did a survey of our members, I think it was like a year or two ago, and it blew my mind. Okay. And it was, how many of you were actually like really, executing on marketing, like promoting your, like for Black Friday and Cyber Monday prior to joining Art Storefronts, and it was it was like 80% were not even doing it, or just were like lobbing an email out on Black Friday or something like that. Nobody was actually taking it seriously, So like, generally, the vast majority of people listening to this don't take it seriously and haven't, which I think leads to the next point on this topic, which is that if you are not taking advantage of the biggest art selling times a year that are laid out there for you, they're just literally laid out there right in front of you for the taking, right? If you are not taking advantage of these holidays all year long, okay, that is the number one problem with your art business. That it's not what niche you have. It's not your website design or font you want to change. It's not anything you think it is. If when the buyers are pulling out their wallets, if you are not taking advantage of that time, you are literally going to lose. That is the number one thing you need to solve right now, right? Like there's no other problem in your business. That is your problem. Like buyers are coming out, they're spending a ton of money, and you're not there. And everybody else that's there is actually taking advantage of it, but you're not there. And then what do you plan to do when all that demand is taken out of the market and all that wall space is filled? You're going to go sell your art. Okay, sure. You know, like, of course that happens in the off seasons. Like people sell art in the off seasons, but like you're all the odds are against you. The wind is in your face, right? Like you're trying to push this cart uphill, and I'm sure it feels that way.
Oh, 100% it does. And like, look, guys, we failed at this miserably for years. Okay. Our customers were behind the 8 ball. We realized we needed a solution, which ended up being a calendar. Right. And sometimes like I'm a visual person like that. Nick, I know you're less so perhaps than I am, but I need to see it visually. And when you have the calendar that tells you when to start these things, like, you know, way ahead of time, like, okay, I'm ready to go. So for us, that was a game changer, calendaring when you need to start these things. And it's like, if you need the encouragement, all of you guys are shopping in your day-to-day. Okay. If you're living in civilization and you're going into these things, the minute you see them change, start your deal.
Yeah, exactly. And we should define what we're talking about. So when we're talking about the calendar, we provide every Art Storefronts member with a 365-day-a-year art marketing calendar, right? So you can see everything that's going to be, you know, everything you need to be doing. And it's like a step-by-step on every day, how you should be like talking about the holiday and executing it through the sale. But just us talking about it, I'm not trying to like promote the calendar here. What I'm trying to do is articulate to all of you that are out there the way that you should be thinking about it and planning for it, right? Like in that level of seriousness, you should be planning the entire year and know exactly what you're doing all year long. And it should make sense. You should be able to show it to somebody like me or somebody who works in the retail business or something, be like, hey, how does my marketing strategy for 2024 look? This is what I'm planning on doing. And at a high level, without knowing every detail or like every word of what you're planning on doing, somebody who is decently competent in business and in marketing should be able to go, this makes a lot of sense. This makes a lot of sense. This is a good strategy as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. And again, like, that's the whole point of this podcast, is to put these things on people's radar that wouldn't ordinarily be there. Okay. That wouldn't ordinarily be there. Do we pivot to announcements?
Sure.
You got kind of a big one for us here, Nick? Is that what we're talking about?
We do. So we just recently announced, and by the time this podcast gets out, you'll probably see it, but we announced the Art Marketing Hub. Okay. Speaking of marketing, we announced the Art Marketing Hub. All right. Because, you know, and I think it's important to say that what underpins the Art Marketing Hub, which is a central command center to deploy all of your marketing, okay? As much of your marketing as possible, let's say. The vision is to try to do all of it, right? Eventually. But all your social media posting, making your posts as, you know, as beautiful as possible, and saving you as much time in doing all of that as you can, right? And the same thing goes for emailing, right? Sending emails and all of that. And what underpins this whole thing is that marketing is the number one problem for every single artist. Okay. You know it. I know it. We talk about it all the time. And we have to keep pounding it home, because you and I continue to see, you know, and we see it with our own customers in our office hours when we're talking to everybody and all that stuff. I mean, it's been a pattern for 10 years, right? It's almost like there's like repellent away from marketing, you know, like they want to go tinker with their website, right? And they want to go do everything but actually do what's going to result in growing your business, right? In increasing your audience size, marketing to that audience, getting your art in front of their eyeballs and moving them down the funnel, right? Down your sales funnel. And what that essentially means is, like, when somebody first learns about you, they go in the top of your funnel. but it takes time to work them down to where they're ready to actually make a purchase from you, And so marketing is the most important part of every business, and an artist business is not, outside of that. We're not stating something here that's like marketing happens to be a problem for artists, right? This is every single entrepreneurial business's biggest problem. Ask any other entrepreneur and they'll tell you, right? The reason that they went out of business is because they didn't market, their product good enough. They didn't have enough customers and they shut down. Okay. Marketing is the number one thing. And so this art marketing hub that we released is all about helping you market, helping you save time in doing your marketing, helping you sort of be superhuman with it, right? Organize everything, all your media assets, right? Like your videos, your selfie videos, your images that you're posting on there. When you just post them directly to the platform, they're just up there and they're just loosely on your phone, right? But we're allowing them, everybody to have a centralized media library where all this stuff is nicely tagged. You can associate it with products, like with an art piece. So if it was like you doing a video or a picture of you holding a piece of a specific piece, you'll always have that. So you can always repost it again a year from now or 2 years from now. So you're staying organized and you're doing this, but more importantly, you're actually solving this marketing problem. You're doing things that solve this marketing problem, because everybody has to be marketing, and you're either doing it yourself or you're hiring someone else, or you're using tools the best you can to make you more,
or it's not getting done.
Yeah, or it's not getting done at all, which is the vast majority of the cases, right? Most artists are not getting the marketing done. That is their biggest problem.
Do you know, it's like one of the things, and I've been guilty of this, and shout out to Karen, because she told me this on the phone earlier today. She's like, I'm very much loud and boisterous, exuberant kind of a guy when I'm talking and when I'm educating. I get fired up. You hear me going on the rants all the time, right? Everyone knows that I love the rants. And a lot of the sometimes to just like get my point across and to have like a catchy headline, I'll be like, artists suck at marketing. Okay, you guys all suck at marketing, right? And Karen was like, you got to stop saying that, right? And I take her point. I mean, we sort of battled back and forth, but what I've come to learn is that artists and photographers are actually really good at marketing. They've just never done it consistently, and they've never been trained how to do it.
Inexperience.
Like, they have such incredible visual creations, right? There's such incredible stories behind those creations. And the disconnect is getting from 0 to 1, getting some momentum, learning how to do this stuff, learning that you can do this stuff, learning how to connect a story to your piece. And ultimately what that leads to when you start getting that going is consistency. And when you have the consistency, the business grows. And so, like, what are we solving in a word? Like, I know if I can get you guys to market consistently and not quit over a period of years, you're going to be successful as an artist. It's almost a guarantee. It is almost a guarantee, because during the course of that marketing, what you'll learn, the feedback that you'll get, the understanding of what directions you need to go in, like a lot of these things that we talk about, you will get there. If you do this work, you're going to get there. It's independent of the art, because everyone can build a tribe that likes who they are and likes what they do and like what makes them interesting. And so our goal with this thing is just to make things a little bit easier, to make sure that things get done consistently. Okay. And that happens, and it doesn't stop ever. Like, almost no businesses grow without marketing. They just don't. And so this is a huge leap forward. I mean, I know we're going to have some demos, so we probably shouldn't be going too in depth into the features and everything else. More of a tease than anything else, but it more than anything else, it represents our continued advancement in what we're trying to do to solve this problem. And I love, and I love the, he's a politically charged figure these days, but I love the Elon Musk analogy, right? Like, all that guy wants to do is go to Mars. All we want to do is solve the starving artist problem. So what does he do? He builds a rocket, and he blows it up a bunch of times, but then he finally gets one to take off. And then he starts carrying cargo with the rocket. And then he realizes that he's going to start carrying cargo for everyone. And then he realizes he's going to need a bigger rocket. And then he realizes he's going to have to launch satellites, because he can't have rockets going up empty without any revenue coming back in. It's like, you just have to keep incrementally stepping. And I firmly believe that the more steps that we take to having this work done consistently, right? And we'll get into more details of how this goes about and does it. Like, you guys can do this. You 100% can do this. You just have to learn a little bit, and you have to force yourself to be able to do it consistently to learn. And once you do, the momentum is at your back. You guys are phenomenal creatives. You're phenomenal storytellers. And contrary to popular thought, I think a lot of you are really good on video. Okay. I know everyone gets terrified about video, but we've got customers that surprise me all the time that have like developed that were so awkward and terrified. I mean, if I had a heart rate monitor on them, I mean, you might send the paramedics on the first couple of videos you made, but all of a sudden you've been at this for a year. And I'm like, Nick, there's animation on top of that video. There's music. They're comfortable. They're switching in between pieces. They're talking about the differences between a media type. They're merchandising and all on video.
And we're talking about ages all the way up and all the way down, all the way up. Like
the age is immaterial. It's immaterial. It's the practice.
Yeah, it's the practice, and it's just the desire, the effort. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to.
But we need to have just a strong, encouraging message on that across the board. And do you have anything else you want to tease on? How about, I don't know what we're allowed to say.
No. Well, people will see the video, but I just think the more important part is the point that you made, which applies to everyone, right? And that I also made, which is just discussing like the seriousness of the marketing problem. Like, how serious are you taking it? All of you listening, like, is it your number one priority? Or is like changing the drapes on your website, right? Like, I love that analogy that you give, the restaurant owner who's changing the drapes and everything, but there's nobody coming in the restaurant. You're just changing the drapes around, you're changing the menu, and nothing's happening. You got to get outside and get out there and promote the restaurant so that people can try your delicious food, right? That's where things are actually going to happen. And so the big takeaway for everyone is the marketing problem is as serious as it is. And as far as we're concerned at Art Storefronts, we're just on the mission. Our mission is to solve the starving artist problem. But the way that we see this is like, you guys are all entrepreneurs. You are doing this out of your house. Okay. That's what you want to do. Some of you want to travel. Some of you are doing it in retirement. Some of you are doing it as a stay-at-home mom and dad, just trying to get a little bit extra side income. Doesn't matter to us. We help all of those range of people. Right. And what our job is to continue to eliminate more and more work off of your plate that normally you would have had to hire somebody to do. Okay. And that's what's so amazing about this digital age that we're in, is that, normally, like if you go back to Weiland's days, like when he was younger, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, like pre-internet even, I mean, he had to have a marketing team. He still does. Right. But like, you just imagine back then you couldn't do things this way. You had to buy ads, in magazines and get out there in different ways. But with technology, you can have your own art gallery. It just happens to be online, right? Yeah. That's your website. You got a proper art gallery website.
Yes, sir.
You don't have any gatekeepers preventing you from promoting your product. This is unbelievable. Myself and you as entrepreneurs for 25 years, this blows our minds even, because we started our first business many, many years ago in the pre-internet, it was the very, very early internet days, but it was, in the 90s. This was before social media and before you could use it to actually promote yourself, right? And you remember how hard it was to promote your business. It's just and expensive. You needed money to do it, right? It was just everywhere you looked, it cost more money and more money and more money. That is not the case these days. You can promote directly on the main street of the internet, right? Which are these social media platforms, and you can build an audience, and you could ship a piece of content. If it's a good enough piece of content, it may go viral, and you could get 100 new people or more to follow you. This is unbelievable times that we live in. And so you guys all have the ability to build a business out of your house. Our job is to make that as streamlined, as simple as possible, so that you're spending the least amount of time on admin and BS sort of stuff that you can delegate, and you're focused only on the things that are really going to be material to growing your sales, right? Creating better, more marketable art, the marketing that you have to be doing. These things are really important.
Yeah, it's funny because I was hearing you say that, and I was like thinking back to a business I had earlier where I had to run classified ads every single solitary week. And I had to pay a kid to go and put signs on the freeway exits. Do you know how expensive that was? There was no free reach in those days. Let me just tell you. Okay. Everything was paid for, every single solitary dime if you wanted the word to get out at all. And it lets me pivot to something else that's like really, really important. And I think this needs to be said because I know many of you guys rely on us for encouragement. There is quite literally never been a better time as an artist or a photographer than right now where we are in 2024 in terms of these social media sites. I'm going to link a recent rant. It's about a 45-minute live that I did on this earlier this week. I'm proud of it. It's like a great piece of content in which I break down a whole bunch of things and look at some of our internal data. And so there's this guy, Adam Mosseri, that is the head of Instagram. And it's really sort of interesting because you don't have direct company representatives for any of the other socials that actually like speak about what's going on the platform, right? And talk about the newest features and why they do that on Instagram. They don't do that on Facebook. They don't do that on YouTube. I don't see that happening really on Twitter, right? Like, it's very in-depth. It's very interesting how he does it. Anyway, break the whole thing down. But aside from right when Facebook launched, okay, and Facebook needed users more than it needed anything else, or so true with Instagram, aside from those early days, which are decades past, there has never been a better time than right now. And I cover this in depth in a tactical standpoint, but what is happening is we are living through a tectonic shift, okay, in what is social media marketing. And the reason that this is happening is there's a number of different reasons. You guys heard me talk about a competition and everything else, but essentially what's happening is you are able to get started on these platforms, have almost no followers whatsoever. And the sheer number of people that I talk to week in, week out, I'm getting ready to retire. I'm finally ready to take this thing seriously. I've never engaged in any active marketing. I've never done any of it. Daunting to start from scratch, daunting. Now, as a result of the way that these social media platforms have evolved, Instagram and Facebook, the two most important for selling art, are actively showing your posts and your content to people that do not follow you. That means someone can get started today. Someone can get started tomorrow and have one follower, and within a week can have their art, their photography seen by hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, millions, even millions is hard. But all of that is possible. That was never possible before. I started this saying, like, my earlier business about how much I had to, one of them anyway, where I had to pay to play on absolutely everything. Now, on the information superhighway, storeway, main street of the world, which are these social media sites, your art, your photography can get consumed, and these algorithms know what it is that you created. They know where your tribes are hanging out, and then they can go and show that content to people that have never seen before. So I'm going to put this thing, like I said, into the show notes. I think absolutely everyone, like the feedback I'm getting on this is insane.
Yeah.
But I break down exactly how this is happening, why this is happening, where you need to focus your energy and efforts right now as it stands on Instagram in March of 2024, how it pertains, what it looks like on Facebook, what you can ignore, and then what all of it looks like visually. So very, very important resource. But we've never, as a brand, seen anything like this. And you don't look at the analytics like I do on this one, Nick, but there are certain posts that we're making that are seen by more strangers than our followers. That's insane. That's never been the case ever. So it just represents an incredibly encouraging time. And I talk to so many artists and so many photographers that are just struggling. What do I do? What do I post? I don't know what I should do. I lay this all out in the video, but again, this just represents another tailwind, another encouragement that says, my goodness, maybe it changes, because Lord knows everything has changed in this industry with the social media sites and what's happened and having to advertise and this and that. So you never know how long it's going to last. But my goodness, is it tremendous right now? Tremendous.
Yeah. And I mean, all of this just like underscores the opportunity that it is, to start an art business these days and how everything has changed. Like, it was not a great business 20 years ago. It's a very, very hard business.
Very hard to break into. Very hard to break into.
Very hard to break into. Very hard to make successful. Very clear why there was a starving artist problem. We talked about this. I think it was in our December 2023 podcast. You guys, like the asymmetry of an art business. If you haven't checked, let's put that in the show notes too. Let's get that in the show notes, because that was a really, really important segment that we did. But it's like, this is another thing that falls into that, Pat, right? Yeah. Which is like what is happening is that it is getting, I don't want to say it's getting easier and easier to start an art business. It's just that the opportunity is getting greater and greater, right? And all of these different things, like whether it's like, e-commerce, the marketing, now being able to market, right? As we talked about. And then you look at the social media competition going in the favor of the consumer, right?
I know.
And that's
never before happened.
That's essentially, I know you went in, you have that in full detail, but God bless competition on social media. This is so good. Facebook, Zuckerberg and them, they were getting pretty monopolistic there for a minute. They were making everybody pay to play. Their organic,
100% a monopoly. It was a monopoly,
total monopoly. And then here TikTok comes out of nowhere and totally serves them and checks them, right? Forces major meetings and changes within Facebook, Meta, right? And here we are today.
Benefiting.
All benefiting all of us, right?
Yeah.
Any business owner, any small business owner, benefiting all of you guys. And this is a really big deal, and it's super exciting.
So I love it. We end on an encouraging note. So we'll link up the assets in the show notes. Definitely follow us on Instagram if you're not following us on Instagram. One of the other really rad recent developments, they've really updated the live streaming product that is on Instagram. And so we love doing a ton of live streaming. We love seeing you. Nick and I are on there on a regular basis. And any questions, any comments you have, if you guys are fans of the pod, you want feedback on the pod, you want to tell us a topic you'd like to see us cover, or if you just want to get your art marketing question answered, we're on there all the time in answering them, and we would love to answer yours. So we'll put the Art Storefront's Instagram handle in the show notes as well. Definitely give us a follow because we are dropping some really, really fun stuff on there recently.
Yeah, and you've got a webinar too that you run every Monday, is that right?
Yeah, and that's always linked up in the show notes. Every Monday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern. Art business webinars. They're really, really fun. So you can come talk to me live in a Zoom if you're so inclined. And on that note, everybody, thanks for listening. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
See you guys.